All right, bullying and violence in the workplace. Folks, every single day that goes by in America, we hear about a sad case. Santa Fe, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston, we had 10 people killed in Santa Fe High School. Santa Fe is a beautiful little, very rural town in the halo outside of Houston. Houston has a massive geographic spread, but Santa Fe is a nice little town. It's hard for me, as a resident of the area, I've actually been through the little town of Santa Fe, to imagine the horror that happened. The policeman who was on duty that day was wounded. He went back home from the hospital a couple weeks ago. They had actually, the neighbors came out and had a celebration for him to welcome him home. One of the things to keep in mind, when you see that school shooting is a horror, but it's also a place of employment. It's a place of employment. It's a case of workplace violence. The shooting in the school in Florida, a workplace and a school. So we are experiencing this in increasing numbers. There's several things that you need to do. First of all, you need to know your employees. When we were talking, I mentioned Ireland, and I and a few other people were talking last night, I handled 2 PTSD cases at the same time recently in Houston. And these were gentlemen who had served in Afghan or Iraq and had come back, and both men appeared to be okay. They did not have a physical disability, either one of them, but they weren't okay. And one of them was, we never had him do anything violent, but he threatened an employee at a contractor, the service company, so we're doing work on other people's property, and he threatened the employee, actually threatened a supervisor for the contractor hiring my client, and for obvious reasons, he was ordered off the job. Don't send him back. So we actually ended up terminating him because we couldn't find another place that we felt safe sending this guy. What I did is I worked with a regional vets counselor in the greater Houston area. He was completely on board with us. Our client had hired the person because they were a vet, wanted to give a vet an opportunity. I encourage that, by the way. It just, we had a specific incident. And, but if there's a risk of violence, we cannot have that in our workplace. The other case was, again, same time working with the same vets counselor. We had a guy who was passive aggressive, and they're having a lot of problems supervising the guy because passive aggressive behavior can be very difficult to supervise. Unfortunately, he also ended up being terminated, but again, we worked very closely with the vets counselor. We did not have a discrimination complaint from either one of those people because we had really worked with them and tried to help them be successful. But this is where supervisory training, being alert, staying on top, documentation, all the things we've already mentioned today become extremely important. Again, we're seeing more and more of this. The mental illness du jour, which has been the hot one for the last few years, of course, is bipolar. And I've dealt with some people. I was in a business networking group with a guy who was extreme bipolar, not on medication. And one day you'd be dealing with him and he'd have the best business ideas in the world and he was going to conquer the world. And then he'd disappear for a month. Didn't answer his phone, didn't answer his door. And every business deal that he had pending, of course, died during that month. And then he'd come back and he'd be fine. So there's a lot of stuff like that going on out there. Again, good supervisory training. Be on top of these things, and if the person's not productive, you may need to put the person off work to have them get their act together. It's not your responsibility. But one of my theories on this, and I've done a lot of research in this area of bullying and violence in the workplace, is your supervisors, first of all, need to be not doing it. One of my concerns is supervisors who are bullies. If that's your problem, you need to fix that problem. That's number one. Number two, employees that bully each other, you have to have well-trained supervisors who make sure it doesn't happen, because the give back on that is the least that you're going to have happen is reduced productivity. If people are not happy, they're not going to do their best job for you. It's not complicated. So you want to make sure that people are not being bullied at work, that your supervisors know what to watch for. A, they're not doing it themselves, and B, they're not tolerating it from others. And I think that's our single best approach to avoiding violence in the workplace. Third suggestion, which is not as easy to do, is premises security. I go to a lot of my clients, I physically go to their workplace usually about once a year and just make an appearance. And I'll charge them for that, just go in there and see what it looks like, what is it. And I like it when I go in and I'm locked into a front room. I cannot get into the building. I can't get past the reception corner. That's a good operation, folks. That limits your exposure. But it's funny because I'll have all this security up front. There'll be a big gate to my left. I can walk into loading docks. So it's important to have a concept of security. Loading docks are not being used. If loading areas, if you've got a big pen where your trucks sit overnight, once the trucks are out in the morning, close the gate. I know it sounds obvious, but thinking a little bit about how would someone who intends to do you bad get into your workplace could pay some dividends for you in the future. Just give some thought to that. Some of you may not be able to adjust for it, but if you can, or if you're looking at rebuilding or renovating your place or getting a new place, some things to think about. Premises security.